heart attack. Fast, fatal, heart impact. Past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and past. I back up my actions. Fact, don't ask, grab reactions. Jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused. Call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose. Pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now. Y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Hirosho here. And now, whenever we last left off with this series, we had Deku, or Izuku Bakugo, and we also had Mirako or Rumi. Now, in the last part, Deku and the Yaoyorozu Corporation, along with even pro heroes, they've made their way to Eye Island. Deku and his organization, or his boss, they're looking to try and find more information and recover the technology that had been stolen from Deku. Since not only do they have information on already the power source and exactly the company who bought that and then downgraded it to a point where it could be harmful to people if exposed to it improperly, and Deku wants to find out exactly what other organizations may have bought the rest of his tech. Along with that, you do actually have the pro heroes. They're well aware that this gala event, not only is some powerful tech being shown, there are rich people here with so much money in their pocket they could probably make a campfire out of it, and still plenty left over to buy technology here. This place is a very large target, and the heroes, they've been sent here undercover to prevent or even stop technology from being stolen. Now, Deku and Mirako, they were also at least ambushed by a reporter, who, after seeing Mr. Bakugo in person, they were very curious, thinking that the very strong, muscular rabbit woman with him was his bodyguard, not his girlfriend. And, well, after at least trying to invade Deku's personal space, Mirako made it quite apparent by telling the lady to back off. To which the woman, noticing that this woman was very strong and could see her rabbit ears because the face mesh was not covering her face, or covering her ears, my bad, she had an idea. She knows that there's a rabbit hero out there who fits Mirako's description nearly perfectly. So she did ask the question, and Deku answered it quite easily, as he revealed to the world and basically all of Japan that him and Mirako are dating. Well, Mirako was freaking out about that. You did actually have Deku, who just went on, and him and Mirako did have a heart-to-heart, where Deku expressed to her that he did understand his father just a little bit better after Mirako's mother pulled that fake pregnancy prank. Now, that was a lot. Anyways, I'll make this episode a little bit longer then. With that out of the way, let us pick up there. Deku and Mirako, they are both looking around. Mirako, she feels out of place here. She is looking at technology, and some of it she can hardly understand. And some, they do at least show on the screens ideas as to how they work. And Mirako, she's both intrigued and confused. There's just that thin little line there. In between it is some sort of understanding of it. And right now you do actually have Deku. Not only is Deku's mind basically being flooded with ideas as to what to do based off of some tech he does see, he even does see ways to improve them. Things the original creators may not have thought of nor have implemented just yet. And many people, they do actually recognize Deku. The moment they see him and the moment he walks up to their areas of work, he looks over their technology. Some people just see that blank stone face Deku does carry. And then some people, they actually see Deku raise an eyebrow, or bring up his hand to his chin, as if to start thinking. And the people who do see Deku do that in front of their area of expertise, they do start sweating a little bit. The idea of one of the most smartest men alive and the greatest engineer most possibly in the world looking at your invention and being, well, inquisitive about it, it's quite the compliment. However, Deku doesn't really say a word to anybody. And you do actually have where Deku does move on to the next stand. As you do actually have Mirko who's standing there with him. As Deku, he does go to bring up his hand and someone look very questionable at it. And Mirko, she does stare at Deku. That's the 4th or 5th time he's done that. He stands here for what, a few seconds, then just stops? And then he moves on. As whenever they do start walking away again, and the person they actually were just sitting there fiddling with their hands, they see Deku turn and walk away, they do seem a bit disappointed. He's not saying a word. He's, well, someone they want to work with, talk to, hold conversations with, ask questions about technology with. And he's just walking away? So, what was that? What was what? What you're doing? Deku looking around, as he does tell Mirko that right now what he's doing is actually pretty simple. The technology here, some of it actually does intrigue him. Some of the ones he's stopping at, he does notice factory similarities, or at least what could be best described as a bit of a signature. What? Yeah. Certain technology is all designed a certain way. The ones that stand out I'm leaving alone. The ones that do seem similar to my designs and or most possibly I could base off of myself, I'm scanning. Scanning? Deku going to hold up the watch. As Mirko shows at least see a small rectangular piece that does appear that it does move. It's on the inside of the exterior part of the watch. And it looks like it could slide. What is that? Well, that's very complicated. It can be best described as a scanner. You know how they make action figures where they put somebody in a suit and they put them in a machine, kinda, and they just scan them like that, doing all sorts of movements? They do the same thing for video games. But, however, this, I'm able to not only get an exterior stand, but also does have a variety of effects. I can see multiple things that the human eye can't. Along with that, I'm actually getting very good readings off of it. Now, Mirko, she's very intrigued. And Deku, he does at least go to stop. As the two are in front of another stand, Deku is going to do one thing. He does go to bring up his hand with his watch, going to slide a few things before going to actually open up a file, informing Mirko that this is exactly how it does work. Him going to put 2 fingers onto his watch and then slide upwards. Mirko actually hearing something with her increased hearing, as there actually is whenever a 3D model does actually appear out of nowhere, as Deku is holding his hand out. And Mirko, she does just stare at Deku's right arm, as she does look at the modeling. What she sees is, it's like a projector. And the person who is actually standing there, they do look very surprised. As Deku does turn to Mirko, telling her that this is exactly what it does, before actually going to turn it off. And the person who just go to open their mouth as Deku does turn and walk away, as he does tell them that their invention does appear to be lacking this item. And the person they do freeze hearing Deku's voice, looking back at their invention and actually going to try and think. That incorporation, that's a genius idea. Now, after walking around a bit more, you do actually have where the two they do sit down to actually watch some inventions be tested. Some that are a bit more in the weapons manufacturing category. Now, as the two are sitting down, there's whenever men, they do actually try and present their technology. On a screen, you can see field test, and many ways the technology is being used. Now, Well, it does somewhat not interest Deku. He does still watch. He's waiting to see it, waiting to see his invention, the weapon he designs, unintentionally being used. Not only does the thought sicken him that people would use that item to kill, but the fact that it could be increased to such a degree that it could knock out and put Ryuko, the dragon hero, in a coma shows exactly how dangerous it could be. However, that was just one shot. A full power blast that could use up the entire energy source. The repercussions of it could be massive. If his math is correct, it could be more devastating than the power source just being released on its own. Now, as Deku and Mirko are sitting down, there is one where she actually is sort of getting a bit antsy. Sitting down and hearing men and women talk about all this type of stuff, it's kind of annoying. And there is one where she does go to stand up and go to walk away. As the moment she did go to stand up, there is whenever her chair makes a loud sound. As many people do turn their heads to see her. As the person they do look up, and they do take this as an insult to their intelligence. Excuse me, where are you going? I'm heading out. This just bores me. I don't want to hear it anymore. How dare you? Do you even know exactly who I am? My technology, what I've been creating, it's done wonders. And what you're doing is an insult. Now, if you would please sit back down and wait for me to finish. I have not yet gone over the rest of my tech. Now, somebody else does go to stand, as it was before Deku could even really go to throw his hands down and get up. As Sayako and Telly just stand up, informing the man about calculations he's done wrong. Now, everybody stares at Intelli as she starts to berate the man and insult him on his tech, as she talks about how these calculations are wrong and this in theory is all fake. In fact, she believes that everything they've seen on that screen is a lie. And the person they kinda just sort of recoil. As there is whenever Deku stands up, people turning their heads to see him. As Deku does inform the man that he went over all the math in his head just now. And from what he can tell, that automatic robot, it's based on ones he's seen at UA. Combat robots and machines he's seen used in sports festivals. The man, he took a hollowed out version of it and basically put a human in charge of it. A man with a quirk suitable, did he not? And the man, he sort of just stays in silence, as Sayako just turns her head. Now, she stares directly at Deku. She knows who he is, and Deku, he should know who she is. And right now, Sayako, she sees Deku as a hurdle, a challenge. He is somebody she hates, because she sees herself as superior. He's only somebody pretending to be so smart. While he does have a quirk like hers is superior. Because of one simple reason. She's never encountered anybody just as smart as her. So she believes people to all be simpletons. Now, as Intelli does go to get out of her chair and walk down, she does at least start to do some calculations, writing some things down on the very large wall that is there. As the TV is turned off, the maid is just staring at everything Intelli is putting down, as she points out in front of everybody that this is all wrong right here and this is all wrong right here, and that the right math is right here. Now, Deku, he does see Intelli do that, as he does see Intelli stare directly at him, as she does talk about how she did that all within the span of 2 seconds, and that she would like to see what Mr. Bakugo will be capable of with the same type of calculations. Since if he is so smart, she'd love to see what he can do. Now, Deku, he does somewhat get annoyed, as he's dealt with people like Intelli before, as he does turn to Mirako. Now, Deku turns to her and informs her that he's going to be right back, as he does go to walk down, and Telly talking about how Izuku Bakugo, he came here tonight with a simpleton, and that the only reason why he himself believes himself to be so smart must be because he surrounds himself with idiots. Is that why he's here? Does he think he's surrounded by idiots? Because she will prove him wrong in a battle of wits. As you do actually where Deku does walk up, him looking at Telly as he is going to do one simple thing. He takes a pen and marker, or he takes a marker, not a pen, and he starts to write some stuff down. Everybody looking at the calculations Deku's done. As after 5 seconds, Deku does step away from the board and let's present everything. Looking right at Telly, asking her if this does suffice. Your calculations are completely correct, yes. However, I'm still very annoyed that took you so long. There's a difference between hand to brain movement, and Telly, you should know about the delay. Well, that is true. However, my calculations took shorter time. My time frame was faster than yours. So I am clearly smarter. Excuse me. My tech. Both the two turn into the man, informing him to be quiet, as they do turn back to each other. And people, they do sort of just watch. A genius inventor versus the genius daughter of a billionaire. And they do start going back and forth with many questions. Deku answering them on the spot as he does go to retaliate with another question. And everybody, they are just watching. Mirako, after about 2 or 3 questions, she was lost. As everybody else, they were quickly trying to write things down. And all of a sudden, this place, from what Mirako can see looking left and right, it was like there was a teacher in the room listing the answers to a test. Everyone's just frantically writing everything down. And there's back whenever Intelli, she does get annoyed, as she does retaliate once again, talking about how Deku brought a simpleton to a tech gala. So, is that his type? Idiots? The type of people he surrounds himself with is disgusting to her. And that if he really was as intelligent as he does say, he wouldn't do such silly little things or play such silly little games. Now, Deku, he does stand there, as Mirako, she gets visibly angry, shouting to Intelli that she will beat the crap out of her right now if she doesn't shut up. To which Intelli just does retaliate, saying that she's a barbarian and a brute. Now, Deku does one simple thing. He knows Intelli's very smart. However, he also knows exactly how to deal with her. Him deciding to wipe down the board, as he does look at Intelli's side of the board and go to wipe hers down as well. Intelli thinking that she may have just silenced him and won. So, she's clearly the superior intelligence. She has this being where Deku is going to pop off the top of his marker. And he does start to write something down. As Deku writes it down, he does actually go to his side, until looking at the equation, as she's surprised by it, as she does watch Deku write down a different equation. And everybody else, they do just stand there in silence. As Deku, he just wrote down 2 different problems that are impossible to answer. They've been trying to answer these problems, both of them, for roughly 400 years, maybe even 300. These problems, they became very hard to calculate and even really get down, somewhere around the time of the 20th century, maybe even the 19th. But then there's Deku. He writes them down so casually, From what Intelli can see, Deku gave himself the harder question. While you can get to a certain point with the problem he gave her, eventually there's no way to continue. And then there's Deku's. There's at least 5 to 10 different steps that go into that problem before it's impossible to solve. And even then, she just stares at him, as Deku does turn his head after at least going to pull the marker off the board, as he is going to hold it out to Intelli with his left hand, asking her if she would like to solve her problem. No. She does just stare at Deku, very annoyed? Or maybe it's, well, curiosity. It just doesn't make sense. Just looks over at him and he looks so calm and determined. But then why? Why is she hesitating? Is this really it? This bluff? Her going to snatch the marker out of his hand. As Mirako, she does sort of watch on. As Deku, he watches her try to solve the problem, going to write a few things out as she does continue on. The problem does continue for roughly about 10 to 20 minutes. And there is actually whenever Intelli just start to get sloppy with mistakes, doing more and more math. And there's actually whenever Deku, he does get a walk over to his board. He told Intelli that he was going to give her a head start, but he'll start on his problem now. As he does go on, as Intelli over the next 30 minutes watches Deku. She's keeping an eye on him as she's trying to solve her own problem, as she thinks that she gets close to an answer. And then she finally just writes something down. Her slamming her marker down as she's going to look over to Deku, who calmly writes down an answer as well, before going to back away. As Intelli does talk about how she did it, and that she will not be proven wrong by her looking over at Deku's question. As she's kind of surprised, but then she tries to think, wait, Deku did his in 30 minutes. She took almost an hour. But wait, that doesn't make sense. She solved her problem. It's an impossible question to answer, and she finally gave an answer. But so did he. He did so with even a harder question, but in about half the time. Now, Deku can see the panic on Intelli's face, as he finally does at least go to do one thing. He cracks a bit of a smile, as he does look over at Intelli's question and at least tell that she answered her question wrong. Now, Intelli, she's confused, looking back at her math as Deku does walk over. And he does walk her through it step by step. Here, 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 and here. Him wiping everything away on those portions and going to actually rewrite them. Intelli watching on, as Deku writes down the correct answer. And she's just taken aback. But no, wait, my math here, it was correct, but then here, it's, but wait, hang on, but what she wrote down here was, but then the error comes from, there's his, and it leads to, but then that means her finally is going to do one thing. She shuts up, as she does watch Deku to wipe everything away. And everybody there, they just watch that happen. As Deku, he turns back to Intelli. And he does look at everybody there, informing all of them that the questions they just answered, they've all been solved. And those are only 2 of the 5 impossible questions he knows how to answer. And that for anybody curious, or for everybody who knows in this room, the amount of those questions that are left unanswered is about 14. And Deku could solve more than 1/5 of them. Him turning back to Intelli, informing her that she can't even solve the easiest one. Now, Deku goes to walk away, as him and Mirako do leave the building. And Mirako, she does watch Deku, as she can hear the rich girl back there basically having a panic attack and an existential crisis. Now, Mirako, she's very intrigued, and she's both sort of really attracted to Deku right now. While Deku didn't necessarily win in a physical confrontation, he both stood up for her and showed Little Miss Moneybags exactly who's boss. And whenever she actually does go to ask Deku about why he went to that extent, he opens his mouth to say something. That's easy. The Intelli Corporation. Exactly what are they? They're the head, they're the head conglomerate rival to the Yakuza Corporation. Not only have the two been going at each other's throats for decades, but there's also the fact that my belief, if I do have to say so myself, was that their corporation may have hired somebody. They've tried giving me business offers before, and even throwing money in my direction, but I've turned them down. While the offers, they were very plentiful, they were not what I was looking for. And they would not come to my terms on negotiations. And while I did even try and go to them before Mr. Yaoyorozu, they would not like to play ball. They're greedy, they're selfish, and they use tactics to get what they want. The Yaoyorozu Corporation, however, they played ball with me. And they actually listened. They take my feedback and advice as a creator and an inventor. And not only because I now own a sizable portion of this company stocks, but because I also give them most of their income with technology and advancements in that division. It's quite simple. Who better to steal your tech from than your biggest rival? Not only that, but while we were in there doing all that, while I was in close proximity to her, my watch was actually scanning and hacking into her phone. And I've at least found a little bits of data that would actually, most possibly, support my cause. What? Mirako. Okay. Sorry, I'm still in high intellect mode. What I'm saying is, they stole my shit. They're the Yaoyorozu Corporation's rival company. So, they would not do deals with me because they kept trying to pay me low amounts of money. And the moment I got a good offer from the Yaoyorozu Corporation, I took it. But they knew where my lab was. They knew who I was and how smart I was. And after hearing about my tech the first time, they wanted more of it. But they knew already they missed out. So they tried to steal it from me by hiring goons. Does that make sense to you? Oh, yeah. I'm guessing they kept an eye on me from high school. Or college. So, you're saying that... I'm saying that these guys, they have it out for me. Because they lost one of the biggest investments ever in history. The revolutionary mind. And because of that, they want to try and take it back. Not the mind itself, but the money that will come from it. Oh my god. Yeah. Sorry. This has all just been very crazy. Now, Mirako, she does understand where Dick is coming from. As well, the event, it might be over tonight. There will be the next few oncoming days. All the tech people are going to be showing off. It's going to take more than one day. It's going to take more than 4 or 5. It's going to take probably about 10 to 20 days. And with all that going on and all the tourism and many things coming from Island at the moment, it's going to be quite funny. Now, the two, they do decide to turn in, heading back to our room. As the two, they actually do kind of talk for a minute. And Mirako, she just found it to be quite interesting. Now, with that being said, her and Deku, they do still let's continue the conversation from earlier. Deku, he remembers what she talked about. He expressed to her his fear, not only of somewhat losing her if she and him do get serious and married one day because of her job as a pro. There's also the fact that he was scared of her being pregnant because he didn't know whether or not the baby, they grew up with both parents. There's the thought Deku had of him running and leaving Mirako to deal with that. He'd be no better than his father. He'd be worse because he has the actual money and, well, resources to support her. But he just run off with the money? Then there's the fact that if Deku and her, they do, well, you know, eventually have one, and she does pass away, would Deku be able to make time for them? With his job, he doesn't get a lot of sleep sometimes. And he only is able to do most of the things he does because of how much trust and faith he puts in the people underneath him. The people underneath him, they basically run the lab on automatic mode without him. He could take days or weeks or even months off and whip up a new idea on the spot and just go back to do that same schedule. But with how much advancement he's making, it needs to be a bit more hands-on. It needs a bit more of a personal touch. And the idea that her passing away and him sort of just being left to deal with a kid in his work, if the company does get larger and larger in that department, Deku would have to focus mainly on that. He'd have to choose. And it's not really something he's wanted to think about. Now, with that being said, there's also Mirako. She expressed her thoughts on her father, and the resentment she had for him. It was very strange. Deku, this is something he can understand. However, there's then the details where he actually does get sort of, if you do want to put it in one simple word, confused by. While Deku had an absent father, she had one who was more neglectful, who was more strict and controlling. Well, Deku had the absence of one in his life. You had the one who, well, he wasn't there. From a distance, he was trying to control her. When he was in her presence, he just basically tried to live her life for her. He wants her to be more like this. He doesn't want her to be the way she is. He wants her to be more like this, not this. It's just constant, well, control. She wishes he wasn't there sometimes. In a way, she doesn't really admire or resent Deku for that, but she's kind of jealous of it in a way. She knows how he turned out, but that's because of his mother. Masaru and Mitsuki, that was her name, right? All of them were there. Deku, he had somewhat of a healthy way of growing up, kinda, compared to her. Well, he did have a little brother. He also at least have a father figure. Someone who was there to make sure there was a balance there. And from what she can understand, Deku, he wasn't as crazy as her, so there's the difference. They did support him in a way, and they were strict in a way. Especially because Deku, the only problems he really had to deal with was one of his inventions sort of just not really working very well, or, setting off smoke alarms or causing a teeny tiny explosion. It's just sort of that way. Well, they were understanding and caring about it. They didn't try and make Deku change, they let him be who he was. And Mirako, she can't help but think that. As you do actually have very late at night. Deku, he's fast asleep. And Mirako, she actually does sit up. She thinks about all of it. Her actually, getting out of bed and going to think. As she does go to get a cup of water. Now, she's wondering about everything, as she's just wearing a shirt and nothing else really. It's just sort of curious. Her looking outside and looking up towards the moon. It's, well, how does she put it? She can say that she's gotten smarter from being around him, right? The basic understanding of how he thinks, the way he acts, his demeanor, his attitude. She can understand everything about him. But in a way, they're complete opposites. Is that why they work so well? But even then, I do love him. But we're both fucked up in our own ways. Now, with that being said, Mirko, she does climb back into bed, as she does actually go to get into Deku's embrace, and she does go to close her eyes and fall asleep. They have a busy few days ahead of them, and this tech gallery is actually somewhat of a good excuse to get out and spend some time together. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed. Have an amazing night. I'll catch you guys in the next part.